I'm Josh Paulison. I'm one of the programmers on Archmage Rises, and I'm super excited to talk with you today about the enchanting system that I've been building out. So Thomas is going out of town for the week, so he's not available right now, but I'll be here to answer questions. If you have any, feel free to leave them in the comments. And I'm really excited to be able to show this to you today. So let's get started. So a few things that I want to note before we get started, even though I just said let's get started. This is an older version of the project because Daniel started working on the inventory system and I started working on the conversation system, and so there are some conflicts that we need to resolve before I can show you them all working in sync. But the enchantment system is here, there's a new inventory system again, different things. So if you see certain things and you're like, hey, I thought they were working on that, don't worry about that. This video is going back a little bit in time so that I can focus on the enchanting system. So let's start by going to the Conclave chapter, because in this place, we can end up enchanting items and infusing gems. And here are 2 new items added here. I'm going to first infuse a gem. Now, in order to enchant something, you need to have a spell, you need to have something to enchant, and you also need to have an infused gem. So just because I have a bunch of gems doesn't necessarily mean that I can enchant. Just because I have a bunch of spells doesn't mean that I can enchant. I need to have those 3 things. So I'm going to look at my gems here, and I've got a moonstone here. I'm just going to click and drag this into here, and then it will tell me infuse 15 power into moonstone over the course of 1 day, 21 hours. Okay, I'm going to do that. Now it's going to try to kick me out, but he might not be able to because, okay, he was able to because sometimes it wraps back around the day. I need to adjust that with the Conclave chapter, but I'm just going to wait the day, return, and start enchanting something. So let's return to the Conclave chapter here. I would like to enchant some items, good sir. And now I can end up selecting one of my items. So you can enchant your equipment, so weapons, you can enchant your shields, you can enchant jewelry, armor, and so first I'm just going to grab a boring wooden shield. So let's see, this shield, it has +3 armor, very basic thing that I'm looking at here. My enchanting skill is currently 50, and I'm just going to grab one of my infused gems. So I got this moonstone I did, I'm going to drag it over here. And now I want to get a spell here, so I'm going to add light to my shield. Now see that it's power 5, duration for 2 years, which is fantastic to just be able to have light that lasts like that. So this means that you could enchant an item, you can enchant some of your equipment with light, and then you could take it with you to dungeons and not worry about torches, not worry about casting the light spell. Super convenient. Some of these values will be balancing over time, so maybe it won't be 2 years of power 5, etc. But this is the kind of power that we're looking at long term, and certainly as you get more powerful as a mage, you can expand these things and just become super powerful with that, and just make your life way more convenient. So I'm gonna change the name here, and I change it to my shield with light. It's a terrible name, I'm gonna enchant it. And I'm going to go over into my items and I'm going to equip my shield, which means I'm going to have to unequip my hunting bow. That's okay, I like my shield more. My shield with light. I'm going to equip that. And now I'm also going to go back and I want to show you a little bit more that you can do with enchanting. And you can actually see along the side here, this is going to last for a lot of hours. We're going to change the display so that it doesn't show that, don't worry. And so now I've got a constant light on with my shield, which is super cool. Now let's say that I'm like, that was a dumb decision, but I love this shield. The shield is the best shield in the world, and I can't imagine living without it. I can drag it over here, and I can remove that enchantment. No big deal. Now if I exit out of here, I mean, of course, like, I can still keep the enchantment if I want, but let's go back and let's actually drag this back in. Let's remove the enchantment. And then let's grab a different one. I've got other imbued gems here. So let's see, this emerald is imbued with 50 power. Now we were talking a bit earlier as a team about how do we want all of these things to balance each other out? Because you've got your enchanting skill, your spell school skill, your imbued gem power. And so it was like, well, what's the way to balance these out? So we're going to be experimenting a little bit, I'm sure, over time. But right now what we're doing, and maybe this is what we'll stick with, is I drag this over here, you'll see that this is only a power 5 spell that is going to be added. But when we looked at the emerald, it had an imbued power of 50. So wait a second, like, why is it only 5? Well, because the imbued gem sets the maximum, and your spell school can fill up to that amount. So we would need to have a skill in the fire school of at least 50 to use the full power of this gem. We can go up to 50, but we can't go over 50 with this gem. And so you can have different gems that basically give you different maxes. Gem sets the max, spell school sets what you can actually hit with that. And so then let's go over here. So you can see over here we've got a fire skill of 10, and so the power ended up as 5. There's some calculations in there. But if I end up just mastering all my spell schools, let's see here. So now you can see that we hit the power of 50 because we have a high enough spell school level in order to use that full amount. So over time, we're going to be adding in all of these spells, letting every spell give you different enchantments. And I want to point out something that I did with the systems that I'm super excited about and geeked about. And that is that I've made them just way more flexible. So before, enchantments and buffs were actually two entirely different systems. Some of the things that this meant was that enchantments were kind of limited. It was just like, hey, it does this damage and that damage and that damage. It's like, that's cool, but it's not the full level that we could go to. So I've basically combined the enchantment and buff systems so that now you can have some very interesting enchantments, and you can find some very interesting enchantments on items out in the world. So let's look at some of the ones that we've got here. So I've got some enchanted items in my inventory right now. So let's see here. This Moonstone Amulet gives me plus 15 craft potion. And this hunting bow gives me plus 30% to resist poison. Now generally an attacking weapon will actually apply the effect to who you are attacking, and then like a shield, a piece of armor will apply the effect to the wearer. So if you are holding a sword that has an effect on it, or using a bow, then it will not apply it to you, it will apply it to whoever you hit. And so right now these were all testing, and so these are all these random things where it can have a negative buff on wearing, it can have a positive buff on striking an enemy, which we plan on having some of that inside of the game world as far as what you could find. We want to make sure that it's a fun balance in that. But like this amulet gives you plus 10 stealth, this hatchet removes blow, let's see, so cancels that out, plus 5 staff, plus 10% to resist incapacitated, plus 10 enchanting. These are really good boots. I should have put these on before I did this. But I ended up setting it up so that those two systems are combined, letting you get some really cool combinations of things. And actually, if I throw this into here, like you can see some of the different things here. So like heal, plus 5 stealth, duration 5 years, plus 10% to resist incapacitated. And some items right now, they might have more buffs than an item could normally hold, which I'll get to in a moment. But you've got these all these different things that can now be applied to items as enchantments. And I know that for me, that's one of my favorite parts in games with a bunch of treasure, a bunch of different weapons, is finding the crazy things that give you new ways of playing, new combinations, new interesting tactics. And so I'm really excited to be showing you this, and that we're bringing this to Archmage. So cool. Okay. So let's say that I am enchanting a shield. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different slots. So you can see here it says 1 slots, which it should say 1 slot. Ignore that for now. 1 slots on the shield. So you can only add 1 enchantment to it. Right now you could technically find a shield that has more than 1 enchantment in the world. We'll probably change that. But right now you have 1 slot on a shield. Now, let's say that I look at this Breathhide Tunic. It is leather. It has 2 slots. Now let's say that I look for something made of cloth. But anyway, cloth has 3 slots. And so, depending on the material in a piece of equipment, you might have more or fewer slots, which then you can end up using for like, hey, I really want to, here we go, a wrap. Which then you can use to add more enchantment. So, of course, armor will generally have a higher base defense, and so you have different advantages of using items with fewer slots, except you don't have as many enchantment slots. So, at the beginning of the game, you're probably going to want those items with fewer slots because, hey, your magic isn't as good, you can't make as good of enchantments. And then over time, you're probably going to be more like, hey, I really want the wraps, I really want the cloth. That's way better for me, and you're going to be leaning in that direction. I mean, different strategies depending on where you're really focusing in. Obviously, you can play that however you want, but that's something that we've got available for you. So I can add multiple enchantments here. Now you can only add 1 of a type of enchantment to an item. So I cannot make these all different light abilities. That would be kind of ridiculous. So if I end up like, oh, I equipped a sword that gave me some buffs. So like if I try to, it will be like, no, but I could add flying here. I could add invisibility. And again, to note is that these are still in development. We don't have enchantments for all the spells yet, but we will. And it's not always going to be something that is incredibly direct. Sometimes it will be, but for example, if you use Fireball to enchant your armor, it's not going to like blow up on you. It's going to, perhaps it would give you fire resist or increased fire attack or resist to burn or a combination of things. We want them all to be interesting and fun and to give you a unique experience. And we certainly don't want any of them to be like, oh, that's stupid, why would I want that? We want to make sure that they're all useful, that they're all cool, that they're all something that you would want. And so this just gives more functionality to spells. It gives you just a really cool way to play. And one of the things that we're really hoping for this is that this just encourages different play styles and lets you try some things that you hadn't thought of trying before. I don't believe that I mentioned this yet, but with all the different buffs and enchantments in place, you can end up finding these items in dungeons. And so you could go and you could find a really crazy item in a dungeon that perhaps it like plus 10% resist incapacitated, plus 10 enchanting. We've also been moving more stuff to stats. So fertility is a stat. You could adjust that with piece of equipment. You could adjust, right now, like I've looked at doing other things where it's like maybe HP is a stat. And just what that means on your end is that we can have enchantments for all sorts of things that just give you really cool finds that can just really change up your play experience and make it something new. And I am super, super excited about that. It's so cool. So yeah, imbuing gems, enchanting equipment, and that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.